Hey, welcome back to another build video of the Camp Easy 5945 Teardrop. Appreciate you joining. If you haven't subscribed already, be sure to hit that button so you can keep up with the latest videos of the Teardrop build. Today is D-Day. Today is door day. We're going to start building the actual doors that goes on either side of the Teardrop. In a previous video, I've put the aluminum trim around the door frame on the cabin walls, so I got that out of the way. But today we start building the actual doors. I've had it in my mind all along that I wanted to build the doors and make them green in color to match, the green fenders that I've yet to put on there. Doing my green graphics, just kind of got a green theme going on with this ivory color skin on the outside of the camper. Originally, I was going to use somewhat of a square shaped paned window in there, but I managed to find some taller, thinner, frameless windows at a really good price on eBay, so I picked those up. I drew those out on a CAD, and they look pretty good. I think they're going to do well. So just kind of using this as a, as an overall visual. I look forward to getting this done. This is going to be, in my mind anyway, it's going to be the last major build project on the overall project. I still have some loose ends to tie up. I need to run a little bit of plumbing from underneath to the sink. I need to install the trailer lights on the outside of the frame. Just a few little piddly things like that. So, but the door build is going to be the last major part. So let's just roll our sleeves up and get it knocked out. Okay, the first step is I had a little leftover, a couple pieces of some of the door framing aluminum trim. I had some T molding and then some L-shaped molding, and those two, when I installed them on the door frame, they basically just overlapped each other like this. And what I wanted to do is measure how thick both of those are together. The reason is I have two pieces of trim overlapped on the door frame, and I'm also going to put two pieces of trim just like this around the outer perimeter of the door itself. So once I know how thick both of these are together, in this case it's 110 thousandths, I'm going to multiply that number times 2. That's 220 thousandths, because I'm doing this twice. Once for the door frame and once for the door. And then I want to have like a 1/16 of an inch gap around the door when it's closed, just to make sure that it goes in place well. All that together is about 283 thousandths, 282.5, but 283 thousandths. So what I've done then is I've just taken this little scrap piece of trim and I drilled a hole in it 283 thousandths of an inch from the edge. I can just stick the pencil in the hole and use this as a little guide, along with my full-size template that I've used so much in the build. I can use that now to draw out a door shape, and it should be the right size. But I've only got one really thick piece of this Baltic birch left to build the doors out of, and I don't want to sacrifice it just in case I've made an error. So I'm going to trace it out on some thinner plywood first and just make a template and make sure the template fits in there, and if it does, then I'll transfer those drawings from the template on over to the regular thickness plywood. I cannot tell you enough how glad I am that I built a full-size template. Man, I have used this for so many things. I know I sound like a broken record if you've seen any of the other videos, but gee whiz, if you build a teardrop of your own, I just can't encourage you enough to build a full-size sidewall template. It takes a little time, but man, it will save you a lot of work later. Okay, so when I dry fit the template in the door frame, it fit really well. There are just a few little minor waves in it where I cut it with the jigsaw, and I found that the corners could be shaved down just a little bit, so I'm going to tweak it with the belt sander. Hey, so what I'm doing now is I took a couple pieces of scrap aluminum and I measured them, and they pretty much equal the thickness of the overlap trim that I'm going to be putting around the edge of the door, plus about a 1/16 of an inch gap. I'm going to lay these in the bottom of the door frame, and I'm going to set this template, now that I've taken the belt sander, kind of honed it down a little bit. I'm going to set this in the door frame on top of that trim, and I'm going to see how much of a gap remains all the way around this template. And I've got some more scrap pieces of aluminum that again equal the thickness of the aluminum trim plus a little bit of a gap. And I'm just going to use them as feeler gauges and go around the edge of the door to make sure that my gap is consistent and adequate. Here's a little bit of a high spot, but I think it's just because I need to shift the template forward a little bit. Try that again. Yep. So using these as feeler gauges, a little bit of a snug spot, I may need to file that one down. I can go around and just make sure that I'm going to have a consistent gap around the door. Okay, after I got the perimeter of the door template tuned in, I guess you could say, I use this trim ring from the window that I'm going to put in the door, and I basically just laid this on top here and drew an outline around it, around the inner edge, and then I measured out from that line another 1/2 inch, because the edge of the window itself comes to the middle of this piece of trim ring here. So I drew a line on the inner edge of this trim ring, and then I measured out a 1/2 inch, drew another line, and that's where I cut. So let's see how the window fits. I'm just going with a frameless window that's hinged at the top. That way I can crank it out and get some airflow even when it's raining outside. Yeah, nice snug fit. Looks good. Now that the window is in, the last thing to do to our template is to cut some holes around the perimeter of the template to save some weight. I'm going to be building the main part of the door, or the core of the door, out of 5/8 inch Baltic birch, and then I'll be skinning either side of that with some thinner Baltic birch. But that Baltic birch is pretty heavy, so I'm going to draw some lightning holes on this template, transfer those to the door core, cut those out. That should save quite a bit of weight. Of course, I need to account for where the T-handle latch is going to be and the 2 hinges on the front. So we'll get to that now. So this is just a little piece of scrap aluminum, pretty soft. I've bent it into an L shape in a vise by hand. I drilled a hole 2 inches from the end and just stick a pencil in the hole and use the end of it as a guide. I made a 2-inch line from the perimeter of the door template and a 2-inch line from the perimeter of the window, and I'll pretty much just cut everything away in between those two. Now I will leave a few little stringers or braces in between those two for support, but it seemed like a quick way to do it. So with that, we now have a finished door template, and I know that it will work well for the left and right side both, because I put it in the door frame on each side, and it looked really good, the spacing around it. I cut quite a bit of weight out of it. I left a little bit of wood here for the top hinge, and down here for the bottom hinge, and then of course here for the door handle, and pretty much everything else will be cut out just to save weight. Again, I'll be putting some thin birch on the inside and outside of the door core, and just for some strength. But hey, I'm happy how this turned out. And when the doors are built, I'll have a template, so if I ever need to know what's inside the door for some odd reason, if I want to fasten something to it, I'll know exactly where I can do so. So with that, it's time to move on to the door construction. If you haven't subscribed, please do so, and check back for that video. We'll see you next time.